When it comes to containing costs in healthcare, everyone has their 2 cents to give. But what do those of us in the business of health insurance have to say? This is Health Sense, and I'm your host, attorney Adam Russo, CEO and co-founder of the FIA Group, a firm with over 25 years experience navigating this ever-changing industry. Join me and my guests as we make sense of effective ways to reduce the skyrocketing cost of healthcare while improving quality outcomes for patients. The only thing it will cost you is 30 minutes of your time. So let's get right to the bottom line and reimagine what healthcare could be. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Health Sense. With me, your host with the most, Adam Russo, the show that gets right to the bottom line on ways to reduce healthcare costs while improving quality outcomes for patients. We are sponsored, as always, by the FIA Group, the leading cost containment firm in the country focused on ensuring everyone getting access to high quality, low cost, reasonable care. As always, please tune in at 10 a.m., 6 p.m., and for those night birds out there, and I know there's a lot of them, 2 a.m. Eastern on Healthcare Now Radio. The main problem we always talk about with healthcare in America can be tied to Einstein's definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Well, that's our current system. And if like 60% of the population out there, if you just went through a renewal period and have brand new insurance starting in January, you know exactly what I'm talking about. As always, you guys always want to know, what's the word of the day going to be, Adam? What's the word of the day? Today's word of the day is storytelling. Now, we have a special guest today, and I was looking forward to this interview for a long time now. From the day I met this young man, he's young, folks. He's young. He's not that old, stiff, what you expect from a CEO of a health insurance company. From the day I met him, I knew that this person was going to create real change in our industry. Not just talk about change, create change. From his vision, but most importantly, to his passion. Today's guest is Caleb Parker. Hello, Caleb. How you doing, bud?
I'm well, Adam. Thanks for having me.
Caleb is the Chief Commercial Officer at Angle Health. He is one of the youngest and brightest stars in the self-funded health insurance industry, the future of our industry. And why do I have the right to say that? Because 20 years ago, I think I was the same guy. He's got a lot more hair than me, less wrinkles. He's a good-looking man. Caleb has a bachelor's degree in economics from Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland. That's where I wanted to go to law school. I got in, but just couldn't afford it. And what I can tell you is that at Angle, he is bringing a tech-enabled solutions to health insurance, an industry that many people know, especially you, Caleb, that is still stuck in like a 1980s hot tub time machine movie, right?
Yeah.
So the word of the day I said is storytelling. Now, why did I bring that up? You stated that coming from an investment world background, you've always seen numbers as more than figures, that they tell stories. With over 10 years of generating revenue, monetizing existing user bases, and creating partnerships to increase market share, you've encountered many narratives, right? So this perspective drew you, according to your website, into the healthcare industry where interpreting data just isn't about analytics, it's about storytelling. What did you mean on that, about that? And do you mind elaborating a little?
Yeah, happy to, Adam. Thanks for the opportunity. As we think about healthcare in general, we think about the product that we deliver here at Angle Health. We're focused on a specific market, SMBs, right? The small to medium-sized businesses. And when we think about the small to medium-sized businesses in today's country, many view employer-sponsored healthcare as a commodity, right? It's a given at so many employers today, whether that's through traditional commercial arrangement, an ICHRA, or a cash in lieu of benefit even. When we looked at it here at Angle Health, the idea and the thought process of how we look at these numbers was, how do we ultimately, again, make a solution available for the average consumer that does sit with the risk profile that we're seeking and find the care that they need? And so we view ultimately insurance as a commodity, right? And the commodities are the pricing is set by the market, and the service and the experience is what differentiates why someone buys one commodity or another. And it comes back to putting those numbers to that story, right? And again, the numbers being the commodity pricing, right? But the story being ultimately that service and that elevated experience.
So you also state that people just don't have bad benefits. they have bad benefit experiences. So can you elaborate a little bit on how that affects your job and the work that we have to do as an industry to change the opinion of our healthcare system by a majority of the population here in the United States?
Yeah, most definitely. I think, the comment regarding people having bad benefits experiences comes down to many people don't know if they have good or bad benefits. They assume that when they show up to the doctor, if it costs more than they expect, it's a bad benefit. If it costs less than they expect, it's a good benefit. And in reality, right, good versus bad, again, is something that members, patients, right, assign based upon emotional feelings. And oftentimes it's a pure emotional reaction rather than one that's, rooted in data or rooted in education. And so what does that look like for people like us in this industry? It's, well, how do we educate not the clients we serve, but how do we educate our families, right? How do we educate the people around us to what is good benefits, right? And again, what is a good versus a bad experience, and removing that emotional reaction, and candidly, actually getting down to the dollars and cents of it.
So what I think is interesting about what you said is it is very different than anything I've heard from any other people that I've interviewed. You mentioned the family members, your friends, the people around you, and being able to explain what good benefits or bad benefits are to them, because that's the everyday person that's purchasing health insurance. I love to tell people, right? They'll be like, "Well, Adam, what's the importance of a plan document or what's covered, what's not?" I explain, nobody actually wakes up on a Monday morning and says, "Man, I can't wait to look at my summary plan description and read about all my benefits." The only time people look at their health plan is if something's not covered or
Right.
if something's covered less than they expected. So going back to that experience you mentioned, you go to the hospital, you go to the doctor expecting, "Oh, I got insurance, I'm all set." And then reality sets in when you find out, "Oh, that's not covered," or, "Oh, I have a deductible. How big is it?" All those things matter. So very interesting. And it ties right into my next question, where I've noticed that your organization at Angle, you talk a lot about personalized healthcare, making it more accessible for members. How does the technology, you talk a lot about technology. I know you guys have great technology and you're using artificial intelligence as well to prowess, to get into all that. How is your model different than what the traditional health insurance people typically get today? I was told, I think you mentioned this to me even in the past, that you can install a new health plan in a couple days compared to what I've seen over my 25-year history is something that usually takes like a month to do.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Yeah, I think we take a step back there in terms of how do we do it, right? Let's address where the technology sits within our offering, right? When we look at so many of the entrants that have come to this market, whether it be a third-party administrator, a point solution, a MGU, a risk taker, et cetera, right? So many of them have come to this market, candidly trying to reinvent how people access healthcare, right? And as a result of it, many of them, quite frankly, fail because what they're missing is that the way in which people want to access healthcare is the way that they have always accessed healthcare. They want to plunk down a plastic ID card. They want the doctor to say, "Yes, I accept this ID card." And they want to leave with a bill or something that's due, right? So to answer your question of where does the technology sit? How does this become a personal experience? Well, the technology sits ultimately at the infrastructure level, right? How do we make those experiences match with what that member's expecting? How do we install that group's benefits in 48 hours to have access to care when they submitted their census, 2 days ahead of their effective date, right?
Right.
Again, because as many people are experiencing right now, coming around 1/1, they still don't have their benefits active. They still can't access their drugs because eligibility isn't loaded. So all of that comes back to technology as an infrastructure rather than technology as a way to reinvent how to access healthcare.
Well, it's funny because you think about it. Today we're in the middle of January, right? I can tell you that, obviously at my company, we've had our plan ready to go since November. However, you're right. I would argue that probably two-thirds, even more, of people with health insurance have not received their updated benefits package, and it's the middle of January. Now, why hasn't there been this big uproar about it? Going back to what I just said and what your comment was earlier, no one looks at their benefits until after something's denied or not covered, which typically takes 30 days, 45 days. So a person who's getting treated today might not even know the bad news about their coverage until a month from now, 2 months from now. And then they say, Let me look at my plan to see what's covered, what's not. So it's interesting that you're able. Now, what has the reaction been to the market when you tell people? Is it eyes rolling? Do they believe you? Do they think you're just being a salesperson? What's the typical reaction that you see from brokers and others when you share the technology and the turnaround times that you guys can do?
Yeah, I think the typical reaction we first rolled out those turnaround times was, okay, we'll see.
Yeah.
Uh, and hey, here's a chance, right? And we'll work on, a single client for a broker. And then they see, right? They see that it is a faster install. They see that it is a less noisy group. And candidly, they see that we're renewing groups at 5% on average for the past 3 years, right? Again, what matters here is the proof being in the pudding, right? Our opportunity to grow is a combination of us finding new brokers through partners, through general agents and more, as well as brokers again, tasting our cooking and saying, you know what, it tastes pretty good.
What's interesting is, if you look, obviously the news has been lot. I mean, there's so much going on right now in the world. So I think this sort of been like it's not news anymore. But the ACA and the ACA subsidies, right? Everyone having an opinion as to whether or not the federal government should subsidize, the Obamacare, cost overruns, all the charges going up. And there's this big discussion as to whether that should be subsidized or whether or not. No one's talking about why in the world is it so expensive anyways. It's like,
Right.
it's going to cost X billions more. The government should fund it because people are going to have 100% increases in their premium over last year. But no one's talking about, I just don't see it. Why is it going up so much? I mean, do people ask you about that? Or is that also just almost like, yeah, it's expensive. Someone's got to subsidize it. Like, what is your take on that?
Yeah, in terms of why healthcare is getting more expensive, I think it comes back to a very simple, economic calculation, right? It's a supply and demand price curve. And ultimately in a price curve, right? You have two things. You have the input of supply and you have the input of demand. And again, when you look at how those are ultimately managed across our industry and health insurance, if consumer demand goes up, which it is as an aging population, and the supply remains the same or detracts, which it is in terms of ultimately, service providers across
Right.
doctors, which is what have you. Well, supply goes down, demand goes up, price goes up, right? And as a result, you have that in addition to, a number of outside pressures like inflationary pressures and increase in research and what have you. And well, one thing leads to another. And of course, price increases. What you do about that price, ultimately, again, is where we feel the technology can shine, right? It can come back to helping individuals and employers make better educated decisions well ahead of that high cost event.
So I'm going to change subjects a little bit. And I love to tell people, something about your career that people might not know, right? I love telling people that, you know, I haven't eaten at Domino's Pizza. And I mean, it's not like it's good anyways, right? But even at 2 a.m. on a Saturday night, like if Domino's is the only option, I will not go there. And people always ask me why. And I go, because when I was 17, I applied for a job at Domino's and got rejected. Okay. Still bugs me to this day, you know, but got
Yeah.
rejected. Any interesting story or something that you did in the past that maybe is different than what you're doing now, but had some type of effect on your life in some way?
I think the biggest effect for me is in the past, if I didn't end up in this industry that, I often say all lost souls find themselves in, right? Probably
Yeah.
would have gone to culinary school, right? Opened a restaurant,
Culinary school.
something. However, what I found out, very early in that journey is that the amount of work associated with culinary school and the jobs thereafter, relative to the amount of work that we do in this industry, is actually probably pretty damn equal. And as a result, it's a lot of hours, right? And
A lot of
unfortunately,
late nights.
a lot of late nights and a lot of thankless pay that goes with it. So, made the obvious pivot that anybody would, and over to the greater financial services space and ultimately employee benefits.
Wait, so hold on. You were actually in culinary school?
Was not I was planning on pursuing it and decided to take the traditional route. But my first passion undoubtedly would have been culinary school.
So do you still cook? Do you cook at home?
Of course I do.
Wait, well, you say of course. I can tell you right now that I mean I've used the grill and I could probably boil an egg. but
Sure.
that's as much as I could do. Are you the actual chef at your home?
Yeah, of course.
So, like, what's on the plate this weekend? Give me an example of something that you might make from scratch.
It's a great question. Um, many times it's a matter of what's down at the farmer's market, right? We'll go
Oh, of
down to
course. What's at the
see what's
farmer's
there,
market, right?
right? We'll see what's at the farmer's market. We'll see what's at the fishmonger, and we'll throw something together.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope I hope my wife's not listening to this because she might want to leave me for a guy that says, "Yeah, I'm going to go down to the." I don't think I've ever said in my life, "Honey, I'm going to go down to the farmer's market and pick out some ingredients and figure out what I'm going to cook for our family for dinner tonight." I actually want to maybe
Your
want to come
farmer's
over to your
market's
house.
much colder this time of year than my farmer's market. So
Yeah.
that's a fair excuse for you.
All right, couple questions if you don't mind. So, when you got into this industry, right? Obviously, you're much younger than the typical C-suite executive that's in the health insurance space. You know, what was your first reaction? Do you see a change in, the dynamic of what's happening in our industry? Are you seeing a lot more tech people get involved? I used to always tell people 15, 20 years ago, why people in the legal profession should look at self-funding and the health insurance space as an option because I said the law is always changing. If anything, you know, when Obamacare and the ACA came around, it's brand new. Everything's always brand new, new innovations, lots of gray area, trying to keep up with the technology from a legal and compliance and HIPAA standpoint. Um, but what have you seen since you entered? What's the difference? And where do you see change still coming?
Yeah, I would say take a huge step back, Adam. I cut my teeth in this industry at 16 with a traditional advisor who did everything from life insurance to group benefits to 401k. And that was my first, sort of speak, entrant into this industry, right? At which point everything was done by paper. We had filing cabinets upon filing cabinets, and every single time we'd get a monthly, quarterly statement for an annuity policy, and we'd file it away into the filing cabinet. And so the obvious and easy statement here, of course, is that technology has made things more efficient. But I think where things are more importantly from that perspective is things are faster and things are going to increase in their speed, right? Even when we talk about a 48-hour implementation, think about car insurance, right? You can go online and be insured by the end of the day. And truthfully, that's often been our statement of where we want to be, right? That you can go online as an employer or a broker, right? Quote unquote, shop for your insurance and be insured by the end of the day and go see the doctor that same day if needed. That's where we'd like to get to. And I'm confident that's where we're headed.
That's amazing. Folks, if you are just tuning in, you are listening to Health Sense on Healthcare Now Radio. I'm Adam Russo, and I'm talking to Caleb Parker, Chief Commercial Officer at Angle Health. So, couple of last questions, if you don't mind. I know that you played college baseball. I think you were a pitcher, correct, at Case Western.
Yep.
How did the baseball experience, being a teammate, the winning, the losing, probably a lot more disappointing days than happy days, right? The end of the season, game's over. How did that help you, that experience, in your current role that you have today?
It's a great question, and I think the biggest thing that it's taught me, and candidly, many of the individuals that sit on the teams that I've ran and teams that I run today, right, is I think sports teach two things, right? One, it teaches the grit and mentality to push through or persevere through difficult things, right,
Great.
to get to what that next outcome is. And look, being a younger organization that's growing in a market that is filled with organizations that have been around for many, many years that are much, much larger than us, there are many times that we do have to persevere. And I think that's been able to ultimately, again, instill across everything that we do here, from our distribution to our operations and more, that sense of grit and perseverance.
Well, I'll tell you, grit and perseverance, Case Western being in Cleveland, as you can imagine, and I'm a big Cleveland fan, my entire sports experience is grit and perseverance. So it's pretty interesting that you say that. Last question. I truly appreciate you for your time today. How can listeners learn more about you and also Angle Health?
Yeah, very simply, anglehealth.com. They can find everything about us there. They can reach out. The whole team sits on LinkedIn on our website, but we're very accessible and we're a very flat organization. Love to talk to anyone who has interest.
Well, Caleb, thank you so much for your time today. It was a great interview, great insight. You know, I did not know about the cooking, which I think is fabulous. So I'll be sure to make sure that if I ever take you to dinner again, that it's at a very, very good restaurant with a very, very good chef, because now I'm thinking this guy's going to critique everything we eat, which is
Never.
fine. which is fine. Every once in a while, it's okay to have an Elio's frozen pizza. I don't know if you
It
have
is.
Elio.
It is. I agree.
Okay. Well, folks, that's all for today. Tune in at 10 a.m., 6 p.m., and 2 a.m. Eastern on Healthcare Now Radio. And as always, the Cleveland Browns season has been over since September. I'm focused on the Cavs, but they're not playing that great either. So let's go Guardians. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Hello, all my friends. This is Adam Russo, the co-founder and CEO of the FIA Group. And we have another episode of Health Sense, which I'm really excited about, is to share with you the new idea that we have going forward. We will be creating a series of episodes that are talking about the high cost of healthcare. Now, I know all of you talk all the time. We see it all over the media. Health insurance is getting more expensive. Health insurance rates are rising. Why aren't we being subsidized by the federal government, et cetera, et cetera? None of it is getting to the actual root cause as to why health insurance is costing so much. I just got off the phone with a longtime client of mine. They have 35 people that work at the company. Of the 35 people, 28 are under the age of 30. None of the people smoke. None of the people are morbidly obese. As far as the CEO knows, no one has these long-term illnesses. No one's a hemophiliac. No one is leaving work early because they have to go and get chemo treatments. It's overall a young, healthy population. Well, guess what, folks? It's called sticker shock. Their renewal starts April 1st. For a single person, remember, one of these 27-year-olds, many of whom have not gone to the doctor even once over the past year. A 27-year-old last year was paying $700 a month premium out of their pocket, had a $30 copay for a doctor's visit, and a $500 deductible. So they're paying the first $500 before health insurance picks up anything. So if this 27-year-old basically, goes and gets his physical done, has a couple, urgent care visits, basically they're never even having a claim that is being paid for by the health insurance. All they're paying is out of pocket of $500. That means they would have paid almost $10,000 for health insurance coverage, and no claims were paid by the health insurance company. That's crazy. This year, and my client just contacted me, instead of paying $700 a month, the rate has increased 32% to over $1,000 a month. Now, you listeners out there, you might be saying to me, but Adam, they must have had a lot of claims. No. Same people, same demographic, just 1 year older. Nothing's changed. How does that happen? Why is this company being penalized with an over 30% increase in costs? Two reasons. One, healthcare costs continue to rise, skyrocket, because no one is auditing. No one is guarding the hen house. And as other people in other plans, other people at other companies are sick, this guy, his company, this CEO, and his employees are paying for the claims of other people that they don't know. That's why. They're not self-insured. They're fully insured. So I thought to myself, it's great to have all these guests. It's great to have all these people dial in. It's great to hear from experts. But I said, enough's enough. It's time we actually tackled why claims are getting so expensive. What are we going to do? We're going to bring my experts, all the experts that I know. We're going to take one claim, one bill, and we're going to decipher that bill and look at how can this hospital charge $1 million? What really should they be charging? How to negotiate a bill on your own? All things that you could do to help save money for yourself, help save money if you're a broker for your clients, or if you're a self-employed, self-insured employer yourself, how to save money for your plan. I'm really excited about this series that we're going to do. I hope you can continue to dial in and listen to us. And again, it's Adam Russo, the CEO of the FIA Group and the host here at Health Sense with Adam Russo. Just truly excited about sharing the new idea and the new series that we'll be bringing to your attention. And I really hope that this is going to open the minds of a lot of people that are listening. Thanks and have a great day.